Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to episode 104 of Talking Asperger's with Andrew. My name's Andrew Marsh, and I'm autistic. My representation of autism is Asperger's syndrome, which is a little outdated term now. Most people in the medical community call type 1 autism what I have, or type 1 autism spectrum disorder what I have. I think that's a bit of a mouthful. I prefer to use Asperger's syndrome for my condition, and that's what I'm going to use in today's talk. If I want to talk about autism more generally, I'll say autism. So that's what I do. Yeah, I have Asperger's syndrome. Had it for 60 years, been diagnosed for 9. So what do we do on this webinar? Well, what I do is I try to help people and businesses understand what Asperger's syndrome is and how they can better manage it in the workplace, how people on the spectrum can better manage themselves around other people, friends, colleagues, and so on, and family, and just how little techniques and little things that you might not be aware of are some of the traits that we do, some of the behaviors that we exhibit, and what that means, and how you can help that person be integrated and understood and supported in your teams. So this week's topic, but just before I do that, it's worth repeating that we are still in World Autism Month. Well, that was April, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay, it just finished yesterday. So on to today. Today I'm going to talk about a concept that you're probably all aware of from a whole different range of situations, and that is one size fits all. Everything's fine, isn't it? No, it's not. One size fits all just doesn't work. Full stop. I mean, it didn't work in the 60s or 70s or 80s. It doesn't work now because all you're doing with one size fits all, and what I mean by one size fits all is you have one way of doing something. If you're a business, you have one set of rules. Everyone has to comply with those rules, regardless of their situation, regardless of their abilities, regardless of what support they need, and so on. Take a very easy example. Your office is on the seventh floor of a 9-story building. You don't have a lift, which you probably should have for something that size. But let's say you're a 3-story building and you don't have a lift. How is the person who worked for you and has worked for you for 10 years, who got knocked off their motorbike by a car last weekend, how are they going to get into your workplace? Because they've got a broken leg and they're in plaster and either in a wheelchair or on crutches. How are they going to get up those 3 flights of stairs to your business? Not easy, almost impossible, without two other people helping them and a whole load of situation going on there. That's a very simple example. But how about, let's have a look. What else should we think of? How about someone who, like me, has Asperger's syndrome and a bit sensitive to bright lights and noise, and a lot of autistic people are. And I'm sat there right next to the window, and it's facing the sun. And in the summer, boom, this huge bright light coming in. It affects my ability to concentrate and focus and can give me headaches, can give me migraines, can affect my ability to work. So, what do? You get a blind? That might work. Do you get a curtain? That might work. Or do you think, well, actually, Andrew, we've noticed you're struggling a bit with this bright light. We can't really do much about it. Is there somewhere else in the office that you would prefer to sit? And what can we do about that? How can we help you? Great. If we could find somewhere that is a darker corner, and I'm going to say this right now. I'm not saying I want to sit in the darker corner because I have Asperger's. I'm disabled, so stick me in the dark corner, forget about me, and just make sure that I go home every night. That's not what I mean. Actually, to me, to someone who is sensitive to bright lights, a darker corner is good because instead of the big, bright fluorescent lights that flicker and yeah, give me an angle poise light that I can put exactly where I want on my desk, that I can get the amount of light I want so that I can work effectively and efficiently and productively. That's great for me. That's absolutely fine. So it's not a case of, oh God, we've got this guy who's got this problem and that problem. Just dump him in the corner and forget about him. That's not what I mean about in that circumstance. It's actually better for me to have a darker corner where I can control the lighting with an angle point light. That works. That's okay. Providing you do it in the right way, that is acceptable. That's a reasonable adjustment that I'm happy with. You'll be happy with, and it doesn't cost you much. It doesn't cost you anything hardly, and we're all going to be good to go. So that's an example of one size fits all. And the way you do things, one size fits all doesn't work. There's a wonderful cartoon. It's a visual cartoon, um, and it's got a goldfish in a bowl. It's got a seal, a monkey, a giraffe, a dog, a snake, and a dolphin. And there's a guy sitting at a desk and says, "Okay, for all of us to assess your academic ability, go climb that tree." Snake will do it, no problem. The monkey, haha, piece of cake. The goldfish, not going to happen, is it? The dolphin, not going to happen, is it? The goat might. There are some species of goats that I've seen photographs of in various parts of the world where there are goats in trees. Fabulous. If we're all judging someone's ability by, in that case, go climb that tree, clearly some of them are going to go fail before they've got even out the door. So one size fits all is a limited situation. It only works for some people. Everyone else doesn't. They won't be productive. They might get headaches. They might get migraines. They might not be able to focus. They might be off sick because the noise from the printer that they're sat right next to, or the fax machine, which is going off all the time, is driving them nuts, affecting their ability to work and do their job. If you've got someone who's susceptible to noise and it affects their concentration, their ability to do their job, don't sit them next to the fax machine or the printer that jams and blocks and goes whir, whir, click, click, for 9 hours of the day. Just don't do it. If there's nowhere else to put them, then say, is there something we can do to help you reduce that noise? And then they might suggest, or you might suggest noise cancelling headphones. Those are great. Get the right ones and they're great. But some people in that office that you work will suddenly think, hang on a minute, they're able to sit and listen to music at work because they got headphones on. You get a jealousy factor. I've heard about it. I've heard people say, I wasn't allowed to wear my noise cancelling headphones because the person next to me thought I was listening to music all day and they wouldn't accept it. Managers got involved. Oh, all sorts of nonsense happened because someone got jealous of someone else being able to wear headphones when they thought they were listening to music. I'm not listening to music. It's cancelling out the noise so that I can focus on doing my job. Crazy, really crazy. But those situations happen. Excuse me just a minute. So one size fits all doesn't work. It doesn't cater for the range and variability of skills and abilities of all of your teams, all of the people in your teams. They'll just pick a few of them and they'll be great, fine, I can work with that, no problem. See you Friday at 5 o'clock. I'm going home. Everyone else is going, what am I supposed to do? I I can't work effectively and productively with those set of rules. It doesn't work for me. So I'm going to be less productive. You're going to think, my manager's therefore going to think that I'm doing it deliberately and I'm not an effective team player. And all these qualifications that I have, they're just nonsense because you're not doing what we need you to do. You're not allowing me to be productive, effective employee because you're not supporting me in the right way. I need to have this support in this environment for me to be effective. Otherwise, I'm going to be 50% effective, 40% effective. And hey, guess what? Guess what? Come annual review time, you're going to get marked down. You're not effective, you're not productive, you're not doing this, you're doing half of what they do next year. You're going to get a small pay rise or no pay rise, or you're going to get written up, or you're going to have a reputation with HR. All of those things that are consequences of your employer not finding the right way to support you in your work. One size fits all. Got to work, hasn't it? We spent thousands of pounds, tens of thousands of pounds putting this manual together on how the employee should work and what their conditions of employment are and boom, 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 all these things. Tens of thousands of pounds. HR consultants, trainers, coaches, employment people, all of that. It might only work for 30% of the people you've got there. What are you going to do? Your poor employees are set up to fail because you haven't got a system that is flexible enough to support them in the right way to do their job. Oh, but we spent tens of thousands of pounds on this employee manual and we've had consultants in and yeah, okay, great, super smashing. How are you going to deal with someone who's got noise sensitivity when you sat them right next to the fax machine? Oh, how do you accommodate someone who's dyslexic and needs to send emails to people outside the company? How are you going to make sure that what they are doing has been proofread and checked by someone else so that it is grammatically and syntax okay? It's not the person's fault they've got dyslexia. It's your job as an employer to say, okay, for anything that goes out of the office or out of the department, I would like you to email it to this person, and this person will check it. And they will email it back to you with corrections so that you can then send it out to the client or the supplier or the stakeholder, whoever that is. That is not difficult thing to do. Okay, it is not difficult. You have someone who's got dyslexia, you find someone, you appoint someone to be their proofreader, their checker, so that any correspondence that goes out from that person is professional and represents the team and the department and the business well. That's what you do. You have someone check it. Or you get some kind of software, which I'm sure there is, that does all the checking and proofing and whatnot for you. But I would recommend that you have a third party, someone else, a human being, look over it just to make sure. Because these software things and AI and stuff like that doesn't have the human factor. It may lose the sense of what someone's saying by changing that, boom, making it efficient and all that, but it loses the sense of the human person. So always make sure you have a human person check it through just to make sure. If you didn't have that, your person with dyslexia is going to get picked up and they're going to get chastised by their manager. You've sent these guys got typos and I can't see the typos. I've got dyslexia. I'm trying, but you've got to help me. We have to do this together. There was a case last year. Excuse me just a minute. There was a case last year um, of a lady who had worked for a company for 10 years or so. Good worker, no problem, great record, all the rest of it. I think what happened was she got a change of manager. Manager moved on, got a new manager. And the manager picked her up virtually straight away and said, there's typos and mistakes in this. I said, well, yes, I have dyslexia. Well, you can send out emails and because the thing got to stupid levels of the woman got sacked, having been there 10 years, got sacked. She did exactly what she should do. She went to see an employment lawyer. Employment lawyer looked at all the information, sued the company for wrongful dismissal. The company got lambasted in court for not providing reasonable support for that lady in the workplace, blah, blah, blah. That should not have happened. That was a complete failure of both the company and that new manager. It had worked for 10 years, get a new manager, gets written up, boom, problem. Completely unnecessary. And that company was probably the biggest retailer in the United Kingdom. If you're thinking of big retailers, Dumpf and Dumpf, you're probably right. It was them, and they got done. They got sued by the employee, and the employee won. Unfair dismissal. But she got a nice settlement out of it. So one size doesn't fit all. Like someone who's working with a Word document or doing a spreadsheet. I know someone very close to me who's dyscalculate. And if you're not sure what that means, it's it's essentially dyslexia for numbers. They can't see and work numbers correctly. Um, and so if you have someone who's dyscalculate and they're doing calculations or writing numbers in documents or reports, they might not see that they're getting it wrong. So it's exactly the same situation with dyslexia. You would want someone to check over to make sure that the numbers that they're writing in are correct, and that if there's any calculations to derive those numbers, that those calculations have been performed correctly and the right number is it. That's not difficult. You say to someone, here's the raw data, here's what I put in. Could you check that for me, please? Perfect. Thank you very much. Give me an hour. I've just got to finish something. No problem. Thank you. Job done. One size fits all. No, it doesn't. There was an article that I read at the back end of last year, and this was from the Harvard Business Review. So it's, you know, a well-known, learned body about business, and it's brilliant. And I'm going to tell you one of the conclusions of this report. And there's two bits to it, but I'm going to say what this conclusion was. It says, properly supported and in the right environment, people with Asperger's syndrome can be up to 140% more efficient than their neurotypical colleagues. Now, I bet you've heard that number, 140% more efficient. Oh, I like that. I love some of that. And that's important. But I want to focus on the beginning of that sentence. Remember what I said? Properly supported and in the right environment. You're looking at me going, what do you mean by that? What I mean is everyone needs to be supported in the right way so that they can be effective. And that might mean that you manage that person differently from the way you manage that person. You have a checker for that person who's dyslexic, the person with autism or Asperger's who's sensitive to bright lights, doesn't sit next to the window, has control over angle poised lamps. There may be people who are sensitive to smells. A lot of autistic people are very sensitive to smells. So you don't put them right by the door that leads to the canteen and you're having cooking smells wafting in and out if you know that it upsets them. Or don't sit them next to the person who wears very strong aftershave or the lady who wears very strong perfume. That's easy to fix, properly supported in the right environment. It might be that your autistic person doesn't need a whole 1 hour lunch break and they prefer to nibble and they might prefer to have two half-hour breaks rather than a 1 hour break. They might like to graze at 10:30 for half an hour, have a sandwich, packet of crisps, whatever, and then do the same again at 3 o'clock. That's a perfectly acceptable, reasonable adjustment for you to do as an employer because not everyone wants a full lunch at lunchtime. They might be quite happy having two or three or four smaller breaks that make up their hour throughout the course of the day. And they're still effective. They're more effective because they might be someone who has diabetes, for example, and their sugar levels can vary considerably. And having small intermediate snacks throughout the day is better for them to keep their sugar levels under control rather than taking one hit at lunchtime. And by the time it gets to lunchtime, they're really flagging. And then by the time 4:30, 5 o'clock comes, they're really flagging again. Well, accommodate that. Let them have two, three, or four shorter breaks that add up to their hour so that they can keep their sugar levels right, their medication right. They can do their sugar testing with the little devices that they do perfectly discreetly in the business without affecting anyone else, and they can manage that themselves. That's the way someone works to keep their health and well-being well at work so that they can be productive, effective, and efficient. then that's what you do. You say, the employee says, I could, rather than that, could I do it this way? Had thought of that. Yes, okay, fine. We'll make a note of that in your HR file and we'll do that. If you need to change it at any point, that's not a problem. Come and talk to me. That's how you do it. So that rather than someone flagging and, at 11:30, 12 o'clock, and the same again at 5 o'clock, their energy levels are up and they're more efficient, more attentive in what they're doing. You don't want someone to be sitting there flagging about to have a diabetic crash. That's what you want. Doesn't help the employee who who collapses, falls over there on their desk, and so people think, oh my God, what's happened? Call the first aider, call an ambulance. That's perfectly avoidable if you allow them to have intermittent snacks and breaks as they need it, and they're still efficient. Perfect. So all of these things, one size fits all. No, it doesn't. So these are things that you can do. Simple. That little thing that I've just suggested to you about someone with diabetes, for example, having four 15-minute breaks or three 20-minute breaks or two half-hour breaks costs the company nothing. A big fat zero. It actually will mean that employee is more effective and more efficient and do better and more of the work that they're doing. So you're actually winning. They're going to be more efficient than if they are slowly sagging come 12 o'clock and come 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll have a more effective, efficient employee. So it's better for the business. Why wouldn't you accommodate that? So that's a simple thing for someone with diabetes. Other people may have other conditions that they need taking into account. It employs in terms of reasonable adjustment and the environment in which they're working in. You may have someone who just gets very tense, very about being around lots of people. I do with my Asperger's, particularly if I've been in a room of lots of people and lots of conversation, lots of noise. So if for example, um, there's been a big team meeting and it's high energy and everything like that, I might need to go for a walk for 10 minutes afterwards, just calm down, decompress, rather than go back into the hullabaloo of the office or the work environment. So that's something that I could say to my boss. Look, we're going to have these meetings and lots of people and intense, or I've gone to meet a client and present something. I might need 10 or 15 minutes just to decompress from that after the meeting, after I've got back to the office or whatever it is, so that I can refocus, calm down, get my breathing back together. Excuse me. Oh, pardon me. And that's a reasonable adjustment. You say, don't worry, I'll catch it up. And if you're sitting there and you're a boss saying, oh, we can't accommodate that, got one word to say to you: smokers. You accommodate smokers going out of the building and standing outside or under that bus sheltery thing out the back in the car park. You accommodate smokers going out of the building, outside the building to smoke. And some of them will do it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day. You accommodate that, no problem. So accommodating someone who needs to take 10 minutes out after they've been in a intense situation of a meeting or a busy area, you can accommodate that. We do it for smokers, so you can do it for someone who needs it to decompress, to get their mental health back on track so they can come back and be effective at work. You can't tell me you can't do that because you do it for smokers. You're not going to tell people they can't smoke at work, are you? So you can accommodate someone who needs to take a 10-minute break, 15-minute break every now and then, or just because they get so intense with what they're doing. They just need to say, look, I've got to go out. I'm going to go now for 10 minutes. Key to that is trust. The second key to that, because there will be health and safety connotations in the event of a fire alarm going off when someone is not at their workstation or in their office or whatever, you have a simple signal. You do something like this. This is my stapler. I suppose with my Asperger's, I've had I've had an intense morning. I've had meetings and I've met different people from different departments, and it's really intense. And I need to get away for 10 or 15 minutes, stick my stapler in the middle of my desk so that when you come out of the office or you're walking around and you go, Andrew Stapler's on his desk, I know where he is in the event of an emergency. He's outside, having a walk around the building or whatever. I know where he is. I can account for him in the event of an health and safety or a security issue or whatever. Not difficult. That is not difficult to do. That's a reasonable adjustment. That's making something fit for the employee so that the system works for that employee. So one size fits all? No, it doesn't. You're going to cater for 30 or 40% of the people in your business, and the rest you are setting up to fail. Is that what you want? You're setting them up to fail. They're not going to get decent reviews. They're not going to get decent pay rises, and they're going to leave. And they may be brilliant, but you're not supporting them enough so that they can be brilliant. Remember, properly supported in the right environment, people with Asperger's syndrome can be up to 140% more efficient than their neurotypical colleagues. That's just one example. That's just one example. If you support me well, I'll be brilliant. If I've got questions, it's because I need to have an answer. I need your opinion. Do I do it this way? Do I do it that way? How would you want to present it? Take the time to have that conversation with me. Doesn't need to be long. That conversation could be 30 seconds. How do you want me to present this? Do you want to do that way or that way? Oh, go for option B. Great, thanks. Boom, done. Doesn't need overcomplicating. So many people and so many HR manuals are overcomplicated because got to think of this, got to think of that, got to think of that, got to think of that, got to think of that. Been on this course, so we've got definitely got to stick that in. Heavens above. Never, ever forget that the blunt end of your HR manual is a human being, an individual with their own needs, desires, wants, skills, abilities, and you've employed them. You've got to get the best from them. That's what you want. You, otherwise, why employ them? Why have them there at all if you're setting them up to fail? So support them. Find out what they need from you to support them and accommodate that as far as you possibly can. Now, we do get to some stages where you can't do a certain accommodation. Find a way around it. Find some way to do it. Let's suppose you have a building, 2-story, 3-story, and you own the whole building. It's all yours. You're not just on level 3, you have the whole building. And you've got someone, right like my first example, who either permanently wheelchair bound or has just been knocked off their motorbike and broke the leg. And normally they would work on the second floor or the third floor, but you haven't got a lift. What do you do? What do you do? Well, I'll tell you what you do. What I suggest you would do is you would say, rather than have you trying to struggle up and down these stairs, we own the whole building. Let's find a place for you on the ground floor near the door where you can work. We've got things called telephones, and if you need to see someone about something, give us a call. We'll come down and see you. That is a reasonable adjustment. Then when your leg's better, you can come back up to your office. Or if they're permanently in a wheelchair, you accommodate that permanently. And you tell the people in that department where that person is working that they're going to be working for you, and can you support them with their other needs? You know, if someone's in a wheelchair, is there someone there that can go and get stuff from the printer rather than them having to struggle up crutches, wheelchairs, the whole lot? Is there someone who can help them get stuff from the printer or the fax machine? Things like that. Those can be done very simply. It's not rocket science. Simple, practical ways to assess and accommodate someone's difficult situation. The alternative to the person who got knocked off their motorbike is, I can't get up these stairs. I'll go see my doctor. He'll give me a 3-month line. I sit down for 3 weeks and watch daytime TV. I'll guarantee you what will happen. That person will get depressed. That person will get worried about their job security. That person's mental health will start to suffer because they're stuck at home for 3 months. And yeah, they might get a bit better and they might get crutches and they can hobble about on crutches, whether it's the ones that go all the way up to under your arms or whether it's the other ones. And they try but they can't get up and downstairs. The only way they can get up and downstairs to go to the loo at home is up and down on their bum. And they can't do that at work on 3 floors. Can't expect someone to do that up 3 floors. Sure, they're off for 12 weeks. They get depressed. Their mental health suffers. They worry. They're not sure whether they can go back to work. Don't know if I can do that anymore. I don't think I can face all these people anymore. I don't think I can do it. Don't know how to do it anymore. Then they get signed off for depression by the doctors for another 3 months. Their savings are gone. Their savings are blown. They're getting statutory sick pay. That they can't afford their mortgage, can't afford the car loan. All of a sudden, everything is spiraling out of control for that employee who got knocked off their motorbike through no fault of their own, or however the situation was that they broke their leg or broke their hip or whatever it is. You, the employer, can find a place for them on the ground floor where they can manage to get in and out, do their job. They might not be 100% efficient, but they might be 80, 85, 90% efficient. You can accept that. Don't forget, you've got all these smokers that go outside 3, 4, 5, 8 times a day. How efficient are they being? Are they really making up all the time that they spend smoking? I'm just asking that question. So you can accommodate someone who's temporarily in a wheelchair because of a broken leg. You can do that. Or, hey, how about this? How about this for a novel idea? We've just been through a pandemic where, in the vast majority of cases, apart from certain things like emergency services and things like hospitals and all things like that, where most people weren't allowed to come into work. They worked from home. People worked from home effectively, efficiently. Some of them, probably many more than you would think, were far more efficient working from home than in the office. How about you give that person who's got the broken leg and they've got somewhere in the home, they can sit at the dining room table, or in the kitchen. They just need a table and a computer. How about you pop and see them once a week? Here's a package of work for you for the week. If you've got any problems, give us a call. We can we can Zoom, we can phone, we can email. Is that okay? Great. That's great. Thanks. Appreciate that. I'll come and see you again next Monday morning. Pick up what you've got, give you some more stuff. Is that all right? Perfect. If we can get through a pandemic with people working from home and being just as efficient as they are when they're in the office, then we can deal with someone who's broken their leg because they got knocked off their motorbike or whatever it was. You can do that. The alternative is you've got someone off for 3 months, then they get depressed and then they don't know how to get back to work. Which would you have? Come on, we can do this. You can accommodate that. Last point about working from home. You might not like this, but this is my take on it. The people who complain most about people working from home are the bad micromanagers who feel as though they've got to be breathing down your neck, controlling every facet of every minute of every day that you work for them. Those are the ones in your office who complain most about working from home. And those were the ones who made the biggest and loudest noises about, we've got to get back to work as quickly as we can. I've got to see my team, which is basically code for I can't control them if they're working from home. I need to have them sitting on their bums in my office so that I can control every moment of what they do. The fact that they might have been 20 or 30% more efficient at home washes over them. They're not interested in that. They've got to micromanage and be seen to be micromanaging. Trust me. The people who made the biggest noise were the worst managers. Guaranteed. So, one size fits all, best way to do it, isn't it? No, completely wrong. I'm going to close with two pieces of information that you know, but you may sometimes have forgotten the significance of. Number one, we are in the third decade of the 21st century. We're nearly halfway through the third decade of the 21st century. Don't you think it's about time we pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps and started to do things better? The way we treat people generally as society and how we treat our employees, we have to do better. And for those of you sitting with somewhat rose tinted glasses going, oh, but we did all right in the 80s. 1980 started 44 years ago. 44 years ago. When I started work in the mid 1980s, this thing that I'm talking to you on didn't exist in the construction industry. There were no computers apart from the odd computer sat in the corner that no one knew what was on it apart from one person because of a very specific piece of technical software to run a certain piece of analysis. That was it. That's and when I first started work, no computers anywhere. I started work in October 1986, in case you wonder when I started work. And it wasn't till I went overseas in 1996 that I got my first computer. And when I came back from overseas in 1997, there was a computer on my desk when I regained employment. So I spent 10 years, 11 years, 10 years, my first 10 years as a geologist in the construction industry, in design, in the consulting engineering side of things. My first 10 years never saw a computer to work with and to use to work with. Never saw one. How about that? Someone working from home. If you want to know what's going on, set up a daily Zoom call, 4 o'clock, just to catch up. 10 minutes, no more. 10 minutes. How you getting on? How you doing? Any questions? No, we're good, thanks. I'll email you something before 5 o'clock today. Perfect, thank you. Anything else you need us to help you with support-wise? No, it's all good. Thanks. I'm fine. Done. Don't have those Zoom calls lasting 2 hours. Doesn't work. You don't really need them. If the person who's doing the work, working from home, needs to contact you, guess what? They'll phone or they'll text and say, can we catch up later on sometime this afternoon, just for 10, 15 minutes on a Zoom call? Yes, no problem. Back to trust again. You've got to trust them to do it. You will soon find out, as people did with the pandemic, when everyone was sent home, you will soon find out whether people are doing the work or whether they're not doing the work. Have a go. Try and find out what it is that each of your employees needs in order to be at their productive, effective, efficient best. And if you're not doing that, you're setting them up to fail. Okay? You've got people with Asperger's, people with autism who are fantastically brilliant at what they do. They just might need a bit of support, a bit of different support from the other people in your office. It's your job to put that support in place so that they can be, remember, up to 140% more efficient than their neurotypical colleagues. You'd want some of that, wouldn't you? Of course you would. Of course you would. So go do it. One size fits all, out the window. How can we support you to be at your effective, efficient, productive best? That's the challenge. And in the UK, there's a law came out in 2010 called the Equality Act, 2010. If you're an employer, you look at this and you're going, "Oh, there's a law. The Equality Act of 2010. It goes on about, amongst other things, reasonable adjustments, what the employer is obliged to do to help support everyone in the right environment so that they can be their productive, efficient best. Lay down in the law in the UK. So if you don't know about it, I suggest you find out very quickly indeed. So that's all we have time for today. We've covered one size fits all. We've gone off on tangents, but we do because there are all sorts of things that cascade out of what I talk about from today's topic. Just remember, as an employer, you have people. You don't have automatons yet. Don't go there. You have people who have their own needs, desires, wants, skills, abilities. Support them in the right way. They'll do fab work. And if someone suddenly changes their situation because they got knocked off their bike or they've just been diagnosed with diabetes or whatever, let them come to you and say, there's been a bit of change in my circumstances. Can I talk to you a bit about it? We can set something up. I've got a couple of suggestions how it might work. Can we talk about that? Be open, be supportive, and when you really need them to work for you for that bit extra, for that key report or that meeting with that key client, they're more likely to still be there and do it rather than, "Phew, I'm getting nothing from you. I can't even get the window blind sorted. I'm going home at 5 o'clock." Which would you rather have? So look out on LinkedIn the week before. Usually about Thursday, Friday, I put of on LinkedIn the week before what next week's topic will be. Don't know yet, haven't thought about it, but we'll have a do so over the next couple of weeks. And don't forget to look out my YouTube channel where all of the videos to all of the previous 103 episodes are on my channel. They're free. Feel free to use them, comment on them, like them, subscribe to the channel. They're an amazing resource there of me talking about Asperger syndrome in the workplace, people with Asperger's, how to support them, and all sorts of things like that. And if you've got a question, please drop me a line and I'm going to get my background sorted. info@andrewmarsh.co, or you can get me on my website at andrewmarsh.co. That's me. Look forward to seeing you next month. Take care.